In the treatment of water, there are many terms, and as professionals, we must understand all of them clearly to assure that we are doing the right thing at every step. Today on the broadcast, we are talking with Brian Batani, who is the Senior Business Development Manager for Health Sciences with Xylem. We are excited to welcome Brian, so let's dive into our interview.
Magandang hapon.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Brian.
Hi, thanks, Casey. Great to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your journey?
Yeah, of course. My name is Brian Batani. I'm the Senior Business Development Manager for Xylem's Health Sciences team. We're a dedicated resource that we provide to our healthcare customers.
Check
I've
is
been focused the last 5 years of my career in that
4:36.
department, focusing especially on sterile processing needs, working with our sterile processing customers to identify and
4:36 in the
implement
afternoon.
solutions, water treatment solutions in the sterile processing space. I've been in the water treatment industry for 15 years. Started off as a water treatment consultant, delivering chemical programs for boilers and cooling towers, and moved over to water filtration purification processes about 12 years ago.
Traffic, pero
Great. Well,
dire-diretso
thank
ang
you so
takbo.
much. Thanks again for being here.
It's an honor.
Ang daming sasakyan, pero
Brian,
dire-diretso ang
what are the
takbo.
types of treated water that are used in healthcare facilities?
Well, there's a lot, and I think we should.
Ganda ng
I
sport
think
car,
it might help Casey to start by talking about why we need to treat water in healthcare facilities, right? So when you think about water and you think about the hydrologic cycle and where water exists in the world, it comes down from clouds as rain, it's flowing naturally through rivers, it's percolating through the soil. When we think about water going back to like high school days, a lot of us probably remember that water is the universal solvent. So water by its chemical formula is H2O. It's hydrogen and
It's
oxygen
give time.
bound
If you
together.
give time, they can
But
dissolve
in reality,
everything.
water is much more than that. As it's traveling through the world, as it's contacting
ano ko rin
different
yan eh.
surfaces, as it's
Hanggang ngayon
flowing,
nasa
as it's
isip
changing
ko
shapes
yan,
and
water
forms,
is a universal
water's
solvent.
in contact with minerals.
Nadidissolve kasi ng
and it's in
water ang
contact
lahat
with
ng
gases, and
materials
it's dissolving things because it's
naturally,
a solvent.
if
So
give
because
enough
of that,
time.
the natural state
Depende
of water,
sa ano sa
when we find it, it has lots
parang
of
ganun.
dissolved minerals. In the mineral
dinidissolve
level
niyang minerals eh.
in that water
Maybe
can
kung
vary
gaano ka,
greatly
kung kailan
depending on
katagal.
whether that water source is coming from an aquifer near New York City,
Water
or
is
whether it's coming from a
natural
deep groundwater well in
solvent.
Southwest Texas, or whether it's coming
Dissolved
from coastal intrusion water
materials.
in Southern
Minerals,
California.
materials.
Right, so the quality
Minerals.
of that water varies quite a bit, and the presence of those minerals can have a significant impact on treatment processes in healthcare facilities, especially sterile processing. There's a need for different levels of filtration for different parts of processing, and so that's why we need to have different types of water treatment in healthcare
Naalala ko na
facilities.
naman yung ano.
All right. Are there seasonal differences as well in some places of the world?
That's a good question, and there absolutely can be seasonal differences. When you think about in your cold areas where you get a lot of snow, the municipalities will apply road salt, and that road salt eventually will dissolve when there's snow or rainfall or whatever, and that makes its way into the water treatment system, and then that salt is present, so you'll start to see water conductivity and water salt levels at higher levels during the cold season. Conversely, in really hot areas where you've got drought, you've got a lot of evaporation happening, and so your water supply might have higher concentration of minerals with less water, so the mineral load is higher during periods of high heat and high evaporation. So yes, there absolutely.
Galing ako sa
seasonal
expo
variations.
sa
You
AutoMechanika.
also see sometimes
Expo sa
municipalities
exhibition.
will change where they get their water
Exhibit.
from based on water availability. So that part of the year they might get it from a deep well,
Dami ng-
part of the year
ang
they might
daming
get it from
ano
a
doon,
surface water body.
toll
They'll
or
switch back
booth
and forth. And
para sa
so there are
mga shop,
definitely seasonal
mga
variations.
nagbi-business
And
ka
when we
o
talk
gusto mo
about
business
understanding
related
the
sa
water quality, I know we're going to jump ahead a
automotive
little bit,
and
but really, having a
mechanical.
good understanding of what the
Yung
baseline feed water conditions to the facility
yung
are
mga
is very
ini-exhibit doon.
important in ensuring that you're ultimately
So,
delivering
ang
the right
daming
water
ano
quality
siya, ang
out
daming
to the
booth.
department for the different areas and processes.
Kulang ang isang araw mo.
Is that what is meant by
Kung
a
isa-isa
water
mong
quality
lilibutin yun,
management
dapat
program
talaga punta mo
in
lang kung
hospital?
alin
Does it
yung
start
kailangan mo
at the
puntahan doon.
intake pipe to the building?
Yeah, I think it has to
Daming
start with an
daming
understanding
tao.
of the water that's coming into the facility, and then an understanding of how water flows through the facility, and ultimately ends up in the department, because there's some treatment that might take place in the mechanical room, in the boiler room area. There's some treatment that might take place through the pipes as it's getting to the department, and then there might be additional treatment once you get into SPD.
Well, I live up here in Minnesota, and I never thought about road salt leaching into the water system and changing the quality or the salinity of the water that's coming into a hospital. That's fascinating. So we have to treat the water, we know that. What are the different types of treatment methods that are used in the hospital, and how do they differ from each other?
Yeah, I think when we talk about treatment processes, and I want to keep processes separate from standards, and we can talk about those a little bit later, but when we talk about treatment processes, some of the more common ones that you'll see in healthcare facilities will be water softening, reverse osmosis, and deionization. And if we talk about how they work and what types of water quality they provide and how they're different from each other, water softening is a very common practice. It's providing targeted water treatment for two specific chemical elements, calcium and magnesium. Those are the ones that produce and provide what we call scaling, right? When we see white deposits on surgical instruments, a lot of times those white deposits
Yung scaling na nangyayari,
calcium and magnesium.
kalmag yan yung calcium, magnesium na sinasabi nito sa radyo.
And they come out of solution as a solid.
Kapag hindi
on surfaces. So water softeners are designed to minimize
ang pinag-usapan diyan tungkol sa
is you've got a vessel, and in that vessel there's resin.
Clinical equipment,
that resin
hospital.
selectively attacks
So,
calcium and magnesium.
para
And
yung scaling na yan,
it's an exchange of ions
bigyan natin ng
in the water, but it's pulling out the
example, yung
calcium and
scaling is,
magnesium because
makita
they're
mo kung
water
kayo,
soluble.
meron kayo
So
sa
it's
sakyan,
selectively targeting those, and it's providing
pag nagkuha kayo ng
salt
tubig at ginamit nyo sa
soft water
wind washer nyo,
washing or
sa
flushing
sa sasakyan nyo, sa windshield, pag hindi
softening happens a lot of times by itself because
hindi nyo ginamit mineral water, I mean
heaters, it can damage
yung
sterilizers, it can
yung
damage shower
malinis
heads,
na
chemical
water, yung
components, right? So sometimes softeners
pag
exist by
hindi
themselves,
siya,
and they might
kung galing lang sa
be a water
tap water,
softener for an entire
pag ginamit nyo sa
facility.
salamin, nagkakaroon nyo na parang mga stain.
Sometimes softeners
Sila yung
exist
scaling na
as a
tinatawag.
step for a further processing step like reverse
So
osmosis.
parang may mga mamuti-muti.
Reverse osmosis
Yung
is
scaling na yon, yung stain na yon, makikita mo,
I wouldn't call softening
ano yun
a water process.
calcium,
Reverse
magnesium yun
osmosis is taking pre-treated
na
water and
minerals.
it's removing a
So
significant
kaya
portion of the minerals.
kung gagamitin mo sa
95, 96,
sa sasakyan
97%
naman
of the minerals.
na
Just
panglinis
bulk
sa
removal
yung
almost everything that's in that
sprinkler,
water, and that includes
water
organics, that includes
wind
bacteria, viruses, and it sends a
panglinis
highly
ng
purified
sasakyan
water stream.
with
Now, the product quality of that water
glass
that
washer.
comes out of the RO system
Ilagay nyo tubig ay yung main
depending on the water that's going into the RO system, because if we're taking 95 to 97% out, the purity of the water on the end
yung
depends on the purity of the water coming out.
galing sa
If
mineral
we take it
water
one step
na
further and we
station.
look at deionization, deionization is selective to minerals generally, and it will remove almost 100% of the minerals. So a lot of times deionization is used as a polishing step after reverse osmosis, because you've taken 95 to 97% of the minerals out. You need to further polish it, and deionization tanks are a great way to do that. So a lot of times they exist in conjunction with each other, and a really good water treatment system will have water softening, reverse osmosis, and deionization. And that's ultimately how you end up with a really robust and solid critical water treatment system when we start talking about
Kung
ST100.
meron kayong water shop,
Right, and then that's how they go in stream and
Drinking water.
softening, RO, DI. That's the order that they go in.
kailangan
That's the
nasa
logical order, correct.
Okay, all right. So you mentioned a
Page
second
level
ago
ba yun?
about the
7
difference
or
between
6?
water treatment processes and standards. Can you dive into that a little bit and let us know what you're talking about?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, the most relevant standard for water quality and sterile processing that we're concerned about today is ST108, water for the processing of medical devices.
Uy, magda 10 minutes na pala.
That's the one that we're most interested in today, right?
Continuous naman
And
ang biyahe ko.
ST108 defines utility water and critical water, and it also has a category definition for steam. Those criteria that are established relate to an individual chemical constituents and what levels they're present in the water. So you can't necessarily say RO water meets
Ano na?
critical water. RO water and water softening
4:49.
and deionization are processes.
Hindi,
They all work in
4:45
conjunction
ng
to
hapon.
achieve the water quality identified in the standards.
Yun.
So critical
Maraming
water,
salamat sa inyong
utility
panonood.
water,
Hanggang dito
in
lang muna.
ST-108,
Malayo
very
pa ang
different.
bibiyahin
Utility
ko.
water potentially
Almost,
suckling right out of the tap, depending
1
on how
hour and 13
good or how
minutes
bad the feed
pa.
water quality is at the source.
Magandang gabi.
And we're using that
Sa
for flushing,
inyo.
washing, and rinsing. A lot
Magandang
of times
umaga
with
kung saan
utility
kayo
water,
nanonood.
hardness might be high.
73.
That's probably the most common
Jerson B
violator
out.
that we see when we're working with customers.